Hello, dear student. I am Dr. Sanjay Pagar, Associate Professor, Department of Geography. Dear student, I welcome all of you in this online lecture series on behalf of Maratha Vidya Prasarak Samajas, Charity Arts, BH Commerce, and AM Science, popularly known as KTHM College, Nasik. Dear student, today in this S.Y.B.Sc class, Geography paper first, that is Environmental Geography. In this lecture, we are going to discuss our chapter number 3, that is environmental problem. Dear student, this is our lecture number 21 of this subject. And in this lecture, we are going to discuss third chapter, that is environmental problem, and its subtopic, a very important subtopic, that is loss of biodiversity. So in previous lecture, dear student, we have already discussed the meaning and definition of biodiversity and the type of biodiversity. Today, for this lecture, we have very simple study objective or learning objective, that is to understand the loss of biodiversity. Here we are going to discuss a detailed information. What do you mean by loss of biodiversity? What are the causes that are responsible for loss of biodiversity, that we are going to discuss detail in today. Dear student, you know that the biodiversity ensures a natural sustainability for all life on the planet Earth. Biodiversity, the diversity of life on the Earth, is essential for the functioning of the ecosystem. That is very important, and it is necessary to keep the level of biodiversity for high environmental equilibrium. If we are not able to maintain the high level of biodiversity at the global level, then definitely it affects on all the biotic factors that are available on the surface, even the human being also. Therefore, it is very important to keep the biodiversity high, or the level of the biodiversity high at the international level. But unfortunately, since last few decades, it's observed that there is a continuous great loss in the biodiversity at the international level. The loss in the variety of life can lead to a breakdown in the functioning of the ecosystem where decline has happened. It means what? You know that the numbers of hotspots we already discussed in previous lecture. Even in India also, we have a very great hotspot in India. Especially I am talking about the Himalayan region, the Western Ghat region, and the northeastern India. But there is a continuous, due to the human interference or due to the increase in the various human activity in that particular area, that directly affect on the loss of biodiversity. And therefore, where these activities flourish in too much or develop in too much, that definitely that damage the local ecosystem or the local biodiversity of that particular region. Therefore, it is very important. So it is necessary to identify such a spot at the international level and to apply the proper measure to minimize the loss of biodiversity. Therefore, it's very important, if you want to continue the function of the ecosystem properly in that particular region, there it is necessary to stop or to minimize the loss of biodiversity. And one other thing is, you know that even in last lecture we also discussed the biodiversity is the foundation for the human health, and habitat destruction is a major cause of the biodiversity loss. Dear student, I repeat this point because this is a very important point, that is habitat destruction. The human being is responsible for destroying the habitat, and therefore when the habitat is destruction happen, that definitely and directly affect on the loss of biodiversity on a great extent. Therefore, it is very important you keep in your mind that habitat destruction is a major cause of biodiversity loss. So very simple. Let us discuss the one very simple definition. What do you mean by loss of biodiversity? Or you can say that the definition of the loss of biodiversity, a simple definition. You see, the decline in the number, genetic variability, and the variety of species and the biological community in a given area is known as loss of biodiversity. You see, student, this definition, 2 or 3 things are very important. The first thing is that decline in the number. Means what? Decline in the numbers mean the whatever the species, it may be the animals, or you can say the crops, or you can say the trees, plants, birds, or microorganisms. This number, they are naturally they are available many places, particularly in the forest area or the marine area, or you can say the ocean area. There you observe the large number of these species. But due to the human activity, or maybe some natural activity also, when the number of this genetic variability or the variety of species decline, then this process is a part of loss of biodiversity. That is first thing. And second thing is the biological community. So the biological community means what? The ecosystem. Because in ecosystem, there is a continuous interaction between producer, the primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, and other consumers, and last but not least, that is a decomposer. So this form the biological community, and even the human being is one important part of the biological community. But when naturally at any place the biological community is available or exists, the naturally the all process is on in a systematic way, and they keep the natural balance in that particular biological community. But when the human being interfere that place, or due to its various activity that directly affect on this biological community, their function, and therefore there is a decline in the number of species. It may be the plants, tree, animals, birds, microorganisms, whatever. When the numbers of these species decline, then this process is known as loss of biodiversity. Dear students, there are numbers of reasons or the causes that are responsible for loss of biodiversity, or you can say depletion of the biodiversity. Let us see what are the main causes that are responsible for loss of biodiversity. First is population growth. Second is industrialization and urbanization. Third one is the deforestation. Fourth one is soil erosion. Then acid rain, grazing, natural calamity, or you can say natural disaster, over-exploitation of the resources, or maybe the part of that biodiversity, maybe anything that maybe the trees, maybe the any animals, birds, or any microorganism. Then we have the introduction of the alien species, then climate change and smuggling. So these are the important point or the causes that are responsible for loss of the biodiversity at the international level. Let us discuss one by one. The first is population growth. The population growth is a very important reason or the cause behind the loss of biodiversity. You know that, student, the human population has grown from 1 billion. It was the only 1 billion in 1850, but now today it increased up to the 7.5 billion in 2020. Dear student, when the population is growth or the numbers of people increase at particular place, that time it create the pressure on the natural resources. They exploit the more natural resources to fulfill their basic needs. It may be the food, shelter, or the cloth, whatever it is, or maybe the other necessities of the human being. That time they create the pressure. They utilize the over exploitation of the various resources, maybe the trees. And that time they destroy the trees to fulfill they bring the much area under their various it may be the for colonies, building the house or other infrastructure. That time they destroy the forest. Therefore, when we destroy the forest, it means you destroy the natural habitat of the various species, maybe the birds, animal, and many things. Therefore, when the population of that particular area is growth, that time it directly adverse effect on the biodiversity. And yes, they're responsible to damage the biodiversity of that particular place. We observe that each and every city of the India or even the world, you will observe that at around surrounding area of that particular city, you observe the lot of the loss of biodiversity. So therefore, the population growth is very important reason. Second is industrialization and hostile economic development. So you know that, student, that industrialization is the process by which an economy transferred from primary agriculture to the one base, the manufacturing. It means what? When the industrialization is taken place, that time due to the manufacturing process. We use raw material, lot of raw material that we get from the nature. Sometimes you get from the agriculture, or maybe from the forest, or maybe from the around region. That time when you use more than what you can say, the exploration of that natural resources in large scale, that time you damage the natural habitat of the species, or the natural habitat of the biological community. Therefore, so when the industrialization is taken place, that time the pollution is created, then the suburban places are formed or the developed surrounding the industrialization region. So therefore, the significantly the industrialization is directly or indirectly impact on the exploitation of the natural resources. They are responsible for the pollution, and you know that the pollution is a major that threat or major cause that loss of the biodiversity. So therefore, the industrialization is very important, because human being would do more and more economic development. But when he did the economic development, that time he also in other hand, he also damaged the natural habitat of the biodiversity, or you can say the biological community. And therefore, the industrialization is an important causes that are responsible to the cause of the biodiversity, or the loss of the biodiversity. Second important is urbanization. Yes, the industrialization and urbanization is very close to each other. They related to each other. When the industrialization increase, that time that responsible to increase the urbanization. The urbanization is referred to the numbers of the people that live in the urban area. Due to the expansion of the urban area, it responsible for fragmentation of the natural habitat. That is very important. The fragmentation of the natural habitat means what? So suppose any city is developed. When that city start to develop, that time the many suburban places are created around that city. And naturally, so before developing that suburban places, might be that place was occupied by the beautiful forest or the dense forest. But due to the interaction of the creation of the new suburban area, that natural habitat, that forests are disturbed or cut down by the human being for the expansion of their needs, expansion of the urban center. Therefore, it destroys the habitat, and when we disturb the habitat, that upset the local ecosystem and lead to the plants and animal. It means what? They responsible to minimize the numbers of the plants and animals and other biological community that was available, that were located at that particular place. So therefore, the urbanization is very important process. Due to the urbanization, that natural habitat is totally disturbed, and that natural habitat is broken into the small species. And you know that when that area is shrinkage, or you can say minimized, or the small patches is not able to sustain the large biological community, maybe the plants, birds, animal, and things. So they require the large area. But due to the urbanization, you don't have the continuous forest area around the city. You might be observed in case of the Nasik, in case of Pune, in case of Mumbai, everywhere this metropolitan city is expanding in a rapidly rate, and that affect the whatever the area was available under the forest around that particular city, that totally fragmented in a small pieces. And therefore, in that particular area, the natural habitat is totally disturbed, and that indirectly affect on the loss of the biodiversity at that particular place. The next is the deforestation. I just mentioned the deforestation. Deforestation is a very important process, and especially the human being responsible that process. The deforestation means what? It means the clearing the forest area, the transferring the forest area into the clear area. So therefore, we cut down the numbers of trees that are available in the forest. The world forest on the human scale result in the decline in the biodiversity, and on a natural global side is known to the cause of the extinction of the many species. Means what? The number of species that are decline in forest area. So why? Due to the deforestation. because deforestation is the process that cut down the numbers of trees. And you know that the due to the human being use the different part of the tree, different parts of the trees for various purpose. It may be for fuel purpose, building purpose, to making the ships, houses, or even the, you can say, as a medicine purpose. For the, under this heading, we are continuously clearing the forest on a large scale. In case of Amazon, in case of in India also, the Western Ghat, this area where due to the deforestation, that great biodiversity of that particular area is lost, and human being, yes, is responsible for this process. So therefore, it's a very important process, deforestation, that directly impact on the loss of biodiversity at that particular place. Then we have this another reason, that is acid rain. Acid rain, you know that the acid rain is a form of precipitation that contains the high level of nitric and sulfuric acid. And when any region, particularly I am talking about the area which have a good biodiversity in that particular area, but when the acid rain is occur in that particular area, that disturb the whole biodiversity. The accidents slightly make the trees weak and damaging their parts like leaves, roots, or maybe flower or anything that we have at that particular area. So due to the acid rain, you know that the acidic effect is a very bad effect we observe on the biotic community. So therefore, the area that have a great biodiversity, if they receive the continuous acid rain, then that acid rain is directly damage the biodiversity of that particular area. It may be the trees, it may be the animal or small microorganism or birds that directly affected due to the acid rain, and the damage, and even they die in that process. And when there is a direct impact of the acid rain, we observe, at particularly I am talking about the European, many European countries, even the India also, the occurrence of the acid rain is recorded by various agencies. So therefore, it's a very important risk. And you know that the acid rain, why it is occurring? It is a effect of negative effect of the industrialization, because due to the pollution, the various that pollutant we release in the atmosphere, and that pollutant is react with the water drop, and they able to form the acid in that particular area. Therefore, the acid rain is also an important reason behind the loss of biodiversity. Then next is the natural calamity. You know that, student, the natural calamities are the major adverse event resulting from the natural processes of the earth. It may be, for example, we have the flood, volcanoes, volcanic eruption, earthquake, tsunamis, storms, wildfire, landslide, and so many things. When these natural calamities are happen, that type, that directly destroy the natural habitat like a forest, or even you can say the around the marine life. So this time the due to the natural calamities happen, and you know that, student, that we are not going to stop this thing. These are the natural processes. We don't control, we don't have any control on the natural calamity. But when the natural calamities happen, like a volcano, flood, or tsunami, or earthquake, whatever, during that place there is a great damage, particularly when this process is happen in the forest area, in the mountain area. At that time we have a great loss of the biodiversity. So therefore, this is very important. You know that in the world at the international level, so the wildfire is a very common thing, especially in the Australia, in the Brazil, in even in India. The numbers of the events are recorded due to this natural fire in the forest area. They damage the large area of the forest, and in that process, and there is also the great loss of the diversity, because in this fire the numbers of the species are lost. It may be the species from the trees, maybe the animals or bird that has lost due to this wildfire. And yes, we don't have any control on the natural calamity. So therefore, this is a very important cause behind the loss of the biodiversity at the international level, at the global level. Next is the grazing. With the grazing is also the grazing is important process due to the milk farming, or you can say the dairy farming process, um, we have a lot of animals. So in such country in like India, we have the livestock, the numbers of livestock, the animal is too much, and the grazing them is very important to survival the all the these animals. But when you know that the grazing animal, when we do in the large scale, in particular I'm talking about the at a particular place where the forest is too much, or even that area have a good soil, but that time there is a, due to this process, the grazing the animal, that result the deflation of the biodiversity in the many ways. The tampling of the land is a very process that has happened, that we observe during the grazing process. So therefore, this is very special. I am talking about the due to the trampling, the result in the the loss of the soil particles, because when the upper layer of the you can say the earth surface that have the soil, and that soil particle are very useful for the not only for agriculture purpose, but many the small microorganisms are available or live in that soil. But when the grazing process happen, that time that soil particle, the soil layer is totally disturbed, and in this process, the small microorganism are lost their lives. So therefore, these are also important things. And sometimes the small plants, or maybe the in forest area, when we conduct the or carried out the grazing process, that time due to the lack of that um, animal, they destroy the small trees, or maybe the you can say the upper the different type of the grass, different type of the small the flowering plants, or anything that have that maintain the great biodiversity at the particular area. But due to the grazing process, this totally natural habitat is disturbed, and that are responsible for the loss of the biodiversity. And next reason is very important, that is over-exploitation. The over-exploitation of various things. Yes, due to the over-exploitation for the commercialization, I'm talking about the especially we are using the various resources that are available in the ocean, and when we do the over exploitation of such resources that are available in the ocean, or you can just see that directly affect on the that biodiversity that are exists, that are available in that particular ocean, in that particular aquatic ecosystem or the marine ecosystem. So this is very due to the, so day by day, as just I mentioned that due to the growth of the overpopulation, a human being started to fulfill their need by using the various natural resources. I'm talking about here especially marine resources, and when we use the over exploitation of these marine resources, that directly affect on the loss of the biodiversity of that particular aquatic ecosystem or the marine ecosystem. Same process we observe in the commerce, the due to the commercialization, day by day the rate of the exploitation of the natural resources is increasing. And when we, and you know that the main source of the getting the natural resources, that from the forest is the main source we're using that forest. And that time when we cut down the trees, or we use the different type of the what you can say the resources that we get from the directly from the forest, that time in that process there is a disturbance, or the you can say the disturb the natural habitat of that particular area due to the continuous over exploitation of the various natural resources. So therefore, and yes, human beings are responsible for this process. The next one is very important, the introduction of the alien species. Yes, for the better yield and the profit, humans have introducing the new species to areas the previously occupied by the native places. Due to this, many native species of the plants and animals are on the verge of the extinction. It means what? Yes, we have when we introduce the any hybrid variety of the any plants, or maybe any crops, or maybe any animal, that time when the numbers of the variety of the plants or the new variety of the plants is increased, it may be in case of the animal, in case of any plants or any trees or any crop, that time when the numbers of new variety are increased, that time in other hand the native variety of the species are damaged or disturbed due to the variety of the introduction of the new variety. There is not one side. In one hand, there is a continuous numbers of new variety, the plants or the animals it increase. In the other hand, the numbers of the old or the native species it decline day by day. Therefore, and you know that this is the important problem we observe at the global level. So therefore, when we introduce the new variety of the animal or the plant or a tree or any crops, that time we are not able to conserve the local or native species. And therefore, and yes, when the native species are damaged, we will not conserve that. Definitely, it observe the there we observe there is a great loss in the old varieties or the native varieties. So therefore, this is the important reason behind the loss of great diversity. And second, then next one is that the climate change. The certain plants and animals have a specific set of condition of survival, but due to the climate change, there is a continuous increasing in the Earth average temperature, and you know that student. The some species of the varieties of the plants or the animals or microorganisms are very sensitive. They are not able to adjust with the increasing temperature, and therefore, when they are not able to adjust or the with the increasing temperature, that time in that process they lost their lives. And therefore, due to the continuous climate change process or continuous temperature increasing that we observe in that particular area, that damage the local habitats, and even there is a great loss of the what you can say the where the local biodiversity of that particular area. And I just mentioned that when the any species, maybe the animal or the maybe the tree, if they are not able to adjust with the changing climatic condition, then in this process they lost their life, and the numbers of these species is declined day by day. So that is, and you know that there is a continuous increase in the climate. There is continuous, we observe the various event we observe that are the indicate there is a great climate change condition at the international level. Especially I'm talking about the continuous the increase in the average temperature of the Earth's surface. We call them as a global warming. So global warming is the main reason behind the loss of great diversity at the international. And dear student, we have the last, smuggling is also very important. Smuggling of the animals and plant is increasing the problem of worldwide. And you know that in case of India, we already seen in Karnataka, the Veerappan was the man that was behind this type of the smuggling all the maybe the elephants or maybe the wild animals such as a tiger, or you can say the lion, deers, and many things that time. So due to this process smuggling, there is a great loss of the what you can say the species. I am talking about the animal and plants. So due to the getting the much more profit from the smuggling cases, so there is a continuous, even the backward area, you can say the northeastern part of the India, even the backward area of the most part, the undeveloped area of the South Africa and the African continent, you observe that smuggling is a main reason, and that damage the what you can say the loss of that directly damage to the biodiversity. And therefore, due to the smuggling process, we observe the what you can say the loss of biodiversity in the particular area. Even the India also, I just mentioned that the most part of the forest area, this process is on. We don't able to control this process, and even the local people are participated in this process for getting the some profit. They sell various animals, the various parts of the animals for the getting the profit. And therefore, during this process, the smuggling process is the main process that directly affect the loss of biodiversity at that particular area. So dear student, this was about the today's lecture. In next lecture, we are going to discuss what are the adverse effects of the biodiversity, loss of biodiversity we observe at the international. We are going to discuss this thing. So thank you.